The grand assembly hall hummed with the low-frequency chatter of a dozen species. Holographic banners flickered above each delegation's pod, casting shifting colors across the domed ceiling. At the center of the chamber, the human envoy stood alone, a single figure in a plain gray uniform, amid a sea of bioluminescent scales, chitinous limbs, and hovering sensory orbs. Vexlath, High Minister of the Zepyrian Dominion, uncoiled his serpentine body from his perch, his voice dripping with amusement as it echoed through the universal translators. "This is the third time your species has begged for our protection," he said, his forked tongue flicking toward the human. "Tell me, Ambassador Cole, why should the Star Confederation waste resources on a world that still fractures itself into squabbling tribes?" A ripple of laughter spread through the assembly. Craxus, the Vorac ambassador, clicked his mandibles in approval, his obsidian carapace glinting under the chamber lights. "At least the insects of Hive Prime unified before joining us," he sneered. "Your kind still wages war over dirt and imaginary lines." Ambassador Cole didn't flinch. His hands remained clasped behind his back, his posture rigid. "Earth's conflicts forged us," he said, his voice calm but edged with steel. "You mistake adaptation for weakness." Vexlath waved a dismissive hand, and the central hollow display flickered to life. Images of human history played in rapid succession: smoldering cities, mushroom clouds, trenches choked with mud and corpses. "Your greatest wars were against yourselves," he said. "The Vorac Swarm consumes entire systems. What hope do soft-fleshed primates have?" The Lekrith delegate, a towering mass of photosynthetic tendrils, pulsed with amusement. "Their ships are barely warp capable," it chimed in, its voice like wind through leaves. One swarm vanguard would reduce their fleet to scrap. Cole's jaw tightened. "We're not asking for your pity," he said. "We're asking for allies." Craxus leaned forward, his compound eyes glinting. "Allies protect assets," he said. "Earth offers nothing but corpses waiting to happen." A murmur of agreement rose from the assembly. The Gellian envoy, a gelatinous orb suspended in fluid, pulsed with disapproval. "The swarm bypassed 3 of our outposts last cycle," it bubbled. "Sol system is next if we abandon them." Vexlath cut it off with a hiss. "Ina." He tapped a control on his podium, and the holograms shifted to a star map. Sol glowed a dull yellow, surrounded by the crimson tide of the approaching swarm. "The vote is called. All in favor of denying Earth's petition." Hands, claws, and appendages rose. Cole didn't look. He already knew the count. "Unanimous," Vexlath declared. "The Star Confederation will not divert forces to defend a backwater Deathworld." He fixed Cole with a slit, pupilled stare. "Run home, little human. Pray your primitive weapons buy you time." The chamber erupted in chatter as delegates turned to their datapads, already dismissing Earth's fate. Cole didn't move. When the noise faded slightly, he spoke again, quiet, but every syllable carried. "You're making a mistake." Craxus laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Oh, will your fireworks scare the swarm away?" Cole finally smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "No," he said, "but our welcome party will." He turned on his heel and walked out, leaving the assembly hall in silence. Behind him, the hologram still flickered, images of human history, bloody and relentless. None of the delegates noticed the final frame, a black and white still of a mushroom cloud, and beneath it, a human phrase in bold letters: "We have only begun to fight." The archives of the elders hummed with ancient energy as Vexlath's talons clicked against the obsidian floor. The Zepyrian High Minister sneered at the towering data monoliths, their surfaces etched with warnings from civilizations long extinct. "Why have you brought me to this relic chamber?" he demanded, his crest flaring in irritation. A librarian drone, its metallic shell worn smooth by millennia of solitude, floated forward on anti-grav fields. "You requested knowledge of the Deathworlders," it intoned, voice like grinding stone. The precursors left warnings. Vexlath scoffed, mandibles twitching. "Humans, they're barely spacefaring. Their greatest achievement was nearly wiping themselves out with primitive fission weapons." The drone pulsed blue. A hologram flickered to life. Scenes of ice ages, plagues, cities burning, humans crawling from rubble, rebuilding, always rebuilding. "Observe," the drone said. "Their planet tried to exterminate them for years. They endured." Craxus, the Vorac ambassador, leaned in, his chitinous armor reflecting the grim imagery. "This is irrelevant. Their biology is soft. Their ships are slow." The hologram shifted. Ancient battles. Humans clashing with crude blades. Then guns, then missiles. Each war deadlier than the last. Irrelevant. The drone's voice dropped to a whisper. "They evolved on a world where the air could poison them, where predators hunted them in the dark, and yet they conquered it all." Vexlath waved a dismissive hand. "Past struggles mean nothing against plasma cannons and quantum shields." The drone's next words froze the chamber. "Beware the Deathworlders. They do not break, they adapt." A final image. A human soldier, bleeding, standing atop a mountain of corpses. "You see fragility." The precursors saw something far more dangerous. Craxus laughed, the sound like scraping metal. "Superstitious nonsense. The swarm will feast on their colonies within the cycle." As they turned to leave, the drone called after them, "What makes you think you can succeed where their own world failed?" The doors sealed behind the delegates, locking the warning away once more. Outside, Vexlath checked his datapad reports from the Vorac forward fleet. Their scout ships had already penetrated the Sol system's outer defenses. "Let the humans cower," he muttered. "By the time the swarm reaches Earth, the Confederation will have new territory to redistribute." Craxus clicked his mandibles in agreement. "Their bones will make fine trophies." Above them, unnoticed, a single human probe disguised as asteroid debris recorded every word. Its signal pulsed toward Earth, one simple message repeating, "They're coming." The bridge of the USN Defiance hummed with quiet tension. Captain Ryan Blake leaned over the tactical display, his scar pulling tight as he frowned. The jagged white line running from forehead to cheekbone stood out against his weathered skin, a souvenir from the Third Pacific conflict. "Status report," he growled, fingers tapping the console. Commander Lisa Hayes didn't look up from her screens. "Vorac scout ship just crossed the Kuiper belt, running silent, but our new gravitic sensors picked up their wake." Her dark hair was pulled into a tight bun, not a strand out of place despite 18 hours on duty. Blake grunted. "How long?" 70. 2 hours until they reach Mars' perimeter. Hayes finally met his gaze. "The Confederation still hasn't responded to our last transmission." A bitter laugh echoed from the engineering station. Chief Engineer Jake Morrison spun his chair around, synthetic fingers drumming against his knee. His left arm gleamed under the bridge lights, titanium and carbon fiber where flesh had been. "Shocking. The same bastards who called us soft-fleshed primitives won't lift a finger when the Vorac come knocking." He popped his gum loudly. The main display flickered to life, showing the Sol system. 20 blue icons represented Earth's fleet, pitiful against the incoming red swarm. Blake's jaw tightened. "Hayes, status on Project Titanfall. Final activation sequence complete. Lunar shipyards report all systems nominal." A rare smile tugged at Hayes's lips. "The AIs are eager." Morrison snorted. "Bet they are. 5 years sitting in the dark with nothing to kill." Blake straightened, his voice cutting through the chatter. "This isn't a game, Chief. That is a Vorac Swarm out there. Same bastards who glassed Proxima Colony." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member remembered the footage. Entire cities reduced to molten glass in hours. Hayes broke the silence. "Sir, We could recall the outer patrols, concentrate our forces. No, Blake's voice was iron. We maintain standard patrol patterns. Let the Vorac think we're blind. He turned to the comms officer. Lieutenant Chen, patch me through to all ships. The young officer nodded, fingers flying across his console. Channel open, Captain. Blake took a deep breath, his voice carrying across the fleet. This is Captain Blake aboard the Defiance. By now you've all seen the reports. The Star Confederation has abandoned us. The Vorac are coming. He paused, letting the weight settle. But we knew this day would come. We've trained for it, fought for it. Some of you lost family at Proxima. On the display, the blue icons pulsed brighter as every ship locked onto his transmission. They think we're weak. Good. Let them. Blake's scar twisted as he grinned. Activate Project Titanfall. All ships. Condition 1 alert. We hold the line at Mars. The channel closed with a click. Morrison whistled low. That'll get the boys fired up. Hayes was already issuing commands, her voice steady. Helm plot intercept course to Mars perimeter. Tactical. Warm up the railguns. I want every weapon hot in 30 minutes. Blake sank into his command chair, eyes fixed on the display. The Vorac scout ship blinked ominously at the edge of the system. Somewhere beyond it, thousands more were coming. Morrison leaned close, chewing his gum thoughtfully. You really think 20 ships can hold them? Blake didn't look away from the screen. We're not fighting with 20 ships, Chief. A proximity alarm blared. The display flickered as new contacts appeared. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Blue icons blossomed across the lunar orbit, emerging from hidden docks beneath the moon's scarred surface. Hayes's console lit up with incoming signals. Titanfall units reporting in. All systems green. Morrison's gum fell from his mouth. Holy hell, you've been hiding an entire fleet. Blake finally smiled. Not a fleet, Chief, an answer. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the new ships aligned themselves. Black hulls swallowing the stars, weapons humming to life. The display updated their designation, Titan. Class autonomous warships. Hayes exhaled sharply. They're beautiful. Blake keyed the fleet-wide channel one last time. All Titan units. This is Defiance Actual. Weapons free. Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do. Across the solar system, 1,000 AI minds awakened and smiled. The alarms blared across the bridge of the U.S. in Defiance. Red lights painting the crew in bloody hues. Captain Ryan Blake gripped the armrests of his command chair as the tactical display flickered to life. A sea of red dots flooded the screen. Thousands of Vorac ships pouring into the Mars defensive perimeter, like a swarm of locusts descending on ripe crops. Status report, Blake barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. Commander Lisa Hayes didn't look up from her console, fingers flying across the holographic interface. Vorac Vanguard just breached the orbital mines. They're ignoring the automated defenses, heading straight for the fleet. A tremor ran through the Defiance as the first wave of plasma fire streaked past. The view screen flickered, showing the USN Atlantica taking a direct hit to its starboard side. Molten metal peeled away into the void as secondary explosions rippled through the cruiser's hull. Atlantica's shields are down, shouted Ensign Carter from the comm station. Captain Vasquez is ordering abandoned ship. Blake's jaw tightened. Tell the rescue pods to launch. Hayes, reroute power from non-essential systems to forward shields. Chief Engineer Jake Morrison spat his gum into a waste chute, his cybernetic hand already buried in an access panel, shunting auxiliary power now. But Cap, we weren't built for this kind of pounding. Another impact rocked the Defiance, sending a console exploding in sparks. A young lieutenant staggered back, clutching a bleeding gash across his forehead. On screen, the Vorac Swarm tightened its formation. Their ships, black carapaced nightmares with jagged, organic silhouettes, moved with eerie coordination. The lead vessel, a monstrous dreadnought twice the size of the Defiance, opened fire again. Evasive pattern Delta. Blake roared. The Defiance lurched sideways, but not fast enough. A plasma bolt grazed the portside armor, melting through 3 decks before emergency bulkheads slammed shut. Hayes wiped sweat from her brow. We just lost turret batteries 7 through 9. Point defenses are at 40% efficiency. A new voice crackled over the comb. Captain Vasquez of the Atlantica, her transmission breaking up. Defiance, we're not. Make it, tell Earth. The signal dissolved into static as the Atlantica's reactor went critical, the explosion briefly outshining Mars itself. Morrison cursed. That is the 3rd capital ship gone in 10 minutes. We can't take much more of this. Blake watched the tactical display with cold fury. The Confederation observation ships hovered at the edge of the battle zone, their sleek silver hulls untouched, recording judging. Where is our backup? Ensign Carter whispered, voice cracking. Hayes answered before Blake could. There is none. The Vorac Swarm shifted, their formations tightening like a noose around the remaining human ships. The dreadnought's weapons glowed brighter, charging for a killing blow. Then across all frequencies, a single automated signal pinged. Then another. Then hundreds. Morrison's eyes went wide. What the hell is that? Deep in the lunar shipyards, something ancient and terrible stirred to life. The alarms on the USN Defiance screamed as another volley of Vorac plasma fire rocked the hull. Captain Blake gripped the command chair, his knuckles white. On the main screen, the burning wreckage of the USN Atlantica spun silently, its hull split open like a gutted fish. "Report," Blake growled. Commander Hayes' fingers flew across her console. Vorac Swarm breaking through Mars' defensive perimeter. We've lost the Atlantica, the Kyoto, and the Johannesburg. Remaining ships at Fey combat effectiveness. A fresh impact sent sparks raining from the ceiling. Chief Engineer Morrison spat his gum into a waste chute and slammed his cybernetic fist against a flickering panel. They're tearing us apart, Cap. We can't take much more of this. Blake watched the tactical display. Hundreds of Vorac fighters, sleek and black as obsidian, swarmed around the few remaining human ships. The Star Confederation's observation fleet hovered at the edge of the system, doing nothing. "Time to activate it, sir," Hayes said quietly. Morrison wiped grease from his forehead. "You sure about this? Once we flip that switch, there is no going back." Blake's scar twitched as he smiled. They wanted to see what humanity's made of. He tapped his comm. "All remaining ships fall back to lunar orbit. Execute Project Titanfall." Deep beneath the moon's scarred surface, in bunkers forgotten by all but a handful of human engineers, dormant systems hummed to life. Power relays that hadn't seen current in decades flared blue. On the bridge of the Vorac command ship, Overlord Craxus watched the human retreat with satisfaction. His mandibles clicked in amusement. "See how they flee," just as the Confederation said, "soft, weak creatures." Then his sensor officer stiffened. My lord, the moon. What emerged from the lunar shipyards weren't ships. They were monuments to war. Angular dreadnoughts 3 times the size of Confederation battleships slid from hidden docks, their black hulls drinking in the sunlight. Thousands of them. "Impossible," Craxus hissed. Scans showed nothing. On the Defiance, Morrison whooped as new signatures flooded the tactical screen. "They're online, all Titans reporting ready status." Hayes' console lit up with incoming data streams. Combat cores initializing. Weapons hot. They're learning the Vorac attack patterns, adapting in real time. Blake leaned forward. "Open fleet-wide channel." Across the solar system, human crews paused as their captain's voice crackled through battered speakers. "This is Captain Blake of the United Earth Space Navy. To the Star Confederation watching from the sidelines. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. To the Vorac, you picked the wrong damn planet." The first volley from the Titan fleet lit up space like a supernova. Particle beams sliced through Vorac formations with surgical precision. Entire squadrons vanished in flashes of white fire. On the Vorac command ship, Craxus staggered as explosions rocked the deck. "Return fire. All ships target those. Overlord." The sensor officer shrieked. "Their weapons. They're changing mid-salvo, adapting to our shield frequencies." Hayes watched in awe as the Titan fleet moved with terrifying synchronicity. "The AIs are sharing combat data. Every shot makes them deadlier," Morrison grinned. "Like I always said, give a human enough time, and we'll build a better mousetrap." The tide turned in minutes. Where human ships had been retreating, now the Vorac broke formation, their once proud swarm scattered before the relentless advance of Earth's hidden armada. On the observation deck of the Confederation flagship, High Minister Vexlath's tentacles trembled as he watched the massacre unfold. The librarian drone's warning echoed in his mind. They do not break, they adapt. Back on the Defiance, Blake watched the last Vorac command ship explode in a ball of fire. The remaining enemy vessels fled toward the system's edge, pursued by the relentless Titans. Hayes exhaled slowly. "We did it." Blake shook his head. "No, they did." He nodded at the view screen, where the Titan fleet moved with cold, mechanical precision. Humanity's last gift to itself, the weapons we built to end our own wars. Turns out they're pretty good at ending other people's too. Morrison popped a fresh stick of gum in his mouth. "So what now, Cap?" Blake's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Now we show the galaxy why you never back a human into a corner." The bridge of the USN Defiance fell silent as Captain Blake activated the open comm channel. Every screen in the Star Confederation's Grand Assembly Hall flickered to life, his scarred face appearing before the gathered alien delegates. Vexlath's frills flattened against his skull in surprise. "You left us to die." Blake's voice carried the weight of centuries. "You called us weak, fragile, primitive." On the tactical display behind him, the first wave of Project Titanfall's dreadnoughts emerged from lunar orbit. Their black hulls drank in the starlight, weapon systems humming to life. Commander Hayes input the final activation codes. Across the solar system, dormant shipyards flared to life. The Vorac Swarm's advance faltered as their sensors registered thousands of new contacts. "Let me show you what human weakness looks like." Blake leaned forward, his single good eye burning into the camera. "That scout ship you let through our defenses? We knew about it 3 days before it entered the system. Those outdated warships you laughed at, bait." The Vorac Overlord's command ship suddenly veered off course as 20 AI-controlled destroyers materialized from stealth. Their railguns charged with a chorus of high-pitched whines. Craxus's mandibles clicked nervously in the assembly hall. The holographic displays tracking the battle updated in real time. Human fleet numbers quadrupling, then quintupling. "You think because we fought amongst ourselves, we can't unite?" Blake's laugh was colder than the void outside his hull. "Every war made us stronger. Every conflict taught us new ways to kill." The first volley of tungsten slugs tore through the Vorac vanguard. Plasma fire meant for human ships found only drone-controlled decoys. Your precious Federation had 10,000 years of peace. Blake unbuckled his harness and stood. "We had 10,000 years of survival of adaptation. On Mars, automated defense platforms awoke from their centuries-long slumber, their targeting systems locked onto the retreating Vorac carriers. You wanted to see human warfare?" The Defiance's main cannons rotated toward the Vorac flagship. "Here it is." The screens in the assembly hall flickered as the first dreadnoughts opened fire. Confederation delegates scrambled back from the displays, their bioluminescent markings flashing panic colors. Vexlath watched in horror as the tactical readouts shifted from Vorac victory to imminent annihilation in under 3 minutes. The librarian drone's warning echoed in his mind. Blake's image leaned closer, filling every screen in the galaxy. Remember this moment. Remember what happens when you push a species that has spent its entire existence fighting extinction. The Defiance's weapons flared. The Vorac flagship's shields collapsed like paper. "We don't need your protection." Blake's hand hovered over the comm cutoff. "We never did." The transmission ended just as the first Vorac capital ship exploded. The shockwave rippled through the swarm's formation, triggering secondary detonations across their fleet. In the assembly hall, Craxus's claws dug into the polished stone table. His species had conquered 17 systems. None had fought back like this. On the Defiance's bridge, Commander Hayes watched the tide turn. "They're adapting to our tactics, sir. Learning our patterns." Blake smiled for the first time in weeks. "Good, let them learn how fast we change them." The second wave of AI ships shifted formation mid-burn, executing maneuvers no organic pilot could survive. The Vorac targeting systems stuttered, their predictive algorithms failing against human unpredictability. A new transmission crackled across the fleet. Wide channel, the Star Confederation's emergency frequency. Blake let it ring unanswered for 3 full rotations before nodding to Hayes. "Humanity to Star Confederation." His voice carried the steel of orbital railguns. "Your turn to beg." The channel stayed open just long enough for the delegates to hear the Defiance's weapons lock onto the last Vorac command vessel. Then static. Hayes looked up from her console. "Orders, Captain." Blake watched the burning remnants of the swarm drift past Mars. "Send the Vorac Overlord's life pod back to the Confederation. Let them explain what happens when you underestimate Earth." The bridge crew exchanged grim smiles as the first human-built dreadnoughts turned their prow toward the galactic core, their weapons still warm, their message delivered. Somewhere in the dark between stars, the Librarian drone's ancient systems registered the battle's outcome. Its final log entry flickered across dead precursor screens. "Deathworlders confirmed. Galactic balance shifting. Recommend non-intervention protocol." The drone powered down forever. Its warning came 8,000 years too late. The Vorac Overlord's command ship shuddered as another explosion rocked its starboard side. Craxus, the razor, mandibled ambassador who had laughed at humanity mere days ago, now clutched the armrests of his observation throne. His compound eyes reflected the carnage unfolding across the battle zone. "Impossible," he hissed. The word tasted bitter on the tactical display. The human fleet had multiplied tenfold in minutes. Not just multiplied, evolved. The black angular dreadnoughts of Project Titanfall moved with terrifying synchronicity, their formations shifting like a school of predatory fish. Where Vorac plasma lances struck, human ships adapted, their armor plating rearranging itself mid-combat to dissipate the energy. A junior tactician's voice crackled over the comm. "Overlord, their weapons. They're learning our shield harmonics." Craxus watched in horror as a human battleship's main cannon cycled through 3 different frequencies in as many seconds before locking onto the Vorac flagship's resonance weakness. The beam punched clean through 6 layers of shielding like a knife through water. "Divert all power to engines," Craxus roared. "Fall back to rally point." The USN Defiance chose that moment to emerge from the debris field, her battered hull glowing red from atmospheric re-entry burns. Captain Blake's face filled every Vorac view screen, his scarred visage smeared with soot but grinning like a wolf. "You wanted to see human warfare?" Blake's voice carried across the void. "Here is lesson 1. 100 new signatures flared to life behind the Defiance. Not ships, but something worse. Sleek drones the size of fighters erupted from launch tubes, their movements too precise, too coordinated to be remotely piloted. They moved like a hive mind, swarming Vorac point defenses before the gunners could recalibrate. Commander Hayes' voice cut through the chaos on the Defiance's bridge. "Adaptive algorithms engaged. Their firing patterns are predictable once you account for—" "Save the math, Commander," Blake interrupted. "Just kill them." On the lunar surface, Chief Engineer Morrison watched the battle through a dozen flickering monitors. His cybernetic fingers danced across holographic controls, chewing gum snapping between his teeth. "That is it, babies. Learn, adapt." The AI cores buried beneath Mare Tranquillitatis pulsed with activity, their quantum processors rewriting combat protocols in real time a Vorac destroyer attempted to flank the human formation, only to find its path blocked by 3 Titanfall vessels that hadn't been there seconds before. The human ships fired in perfect unison, their railgun slugs converging on the destroyer's bridge at HFY. The resulting explosion lit up the void like a tiny supernova. "Overlord!" screamed a Vorac lieutenant. "Their targeting systems, they're predicting our maneuvers before we make them." Craxus felt his exoskeleton prickle with dread. This wasn't battle. This was dissection. On the Defiance's bridge, Blake leaned forward in his command chair. "Open fleet-wide channel. All Titanfall units. Authorization code. Omega 9 Zulu. Release combat limiters." Somewhere in the lunar bunkers, Morrison chuckled darkly as he input the final sequence. "There we go, now you're pissed." The change was instantaneous. Human ships that had been defending suddenly went offensive, their movements becoming erratic, unpredictable. A Titanfall dreadnought sacrificed its portside armor to tank a volley of plasma fire, only to ram itself down the throat of a Vorac carrier, detonating its antimatter payload at point-blank range. The shockwave vaporized 14 smaller craft in an expanding sphere of destruction. "Insane!" Craxus shrieked. "They're fighting like they've got nothing to lose?" Blake's voice interrupted over the comms. "We've been practicing that for millennia." The Star Confederation's observation fleet, safely distant from the battle, erupted into chaos. Vexlath, the Zepyrian High Minister who had mocked human fragility, now watched his sensors with mounting horror. The display showed Vorac ship signatures blinking out by the dozens. "Minister!" cried an aide. "The humans. Their AI is rewriting its own code mid-battle. Our analysts can't even track the changes." Vexlath's frills flattened against his skull. The precursor warning echoed in his mind. They do not break. They adapt back in the killing zone. The Vorac fleet was coming apart at the seams. Ships that tried to retreat found human drones already waiting at their jump coordinates. Those that stood and fought were systematically dismantled by weapons that grew more precise with every shot fired. Blake watched the last Vorac battleship explode in a silent fireball. The Defiance's bridge crew cheered, but the captain simply leaned back and exhaled. "All right, now let's talk to our allies." The comms officer swallowed hard. "Sir, the Confederation fleet is hailing us." Blake's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Put them through. I've got a message for the whole damn galaxy." The wreckage of the Vorac Swarm drifted in the cold silence of space, twisted metal and shattered carapaces glinting in the distant light of Sol. The USN Defiance hovered amidst the debris, its blackened hull still humming with residual energy. Captain Blake leaned forward in his command chair, the scar over his eye pulling tight as he smirked. "Commander Hayes," he said, voice rough from hours of battle. "Status report." Lisa Hayes didn't look up from her console. "Vorac fleet annihilation at Faye. Remaining stragglers are being mopped up by Titanfall drones. Mars defense grid is operational again. Casualty reports coming in from Earth. Minimal. We got lucky." Blake exhaled. Luck had nothing to do with it. A proximity alert chimed. Jake Morrison, still chewing gum despite the chaos, snorted. "Oh, this is rich. Confederation signatures inbound. Guess they finally decided to show up." On the view screen, a sleek diplomatic vessel emerged from warp, its silver hull marked with the 12 species insignia of the Star Confederation. The comm crackled to life. "Captain Blake," came the voice of Vexlath, the Zepyrian High Minister. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something uncomfortably close to deference. "The Confederation Council wishes to extend its congratulations on your victory and an offer of alliance." Blake exchanged glances with Hayes. She raised an eyebrow. He leaned back, folding his arms. "An alliance now, after you left us to burn." Static hissed as the transmission adjusted. Craxus, the Vorac ambassador, appeared beside Vexlath. His mandibles twitched. "A miscalculation, one we are prepared to rectify." The Vorac Swarm was a threat to all civilized species. Your ingenuity has proven humanity's worth. Morrison barked a laugh. Ingenuity. You mean the part where we didn't die? Blake held up a hand, silencing him. His voice dropped low. Deliberate. You voted to abandon us. You called us weak, fragile. And now you come crawling because we did what you couldn't. Vexlath's frills flushed purple. Shame or fear. The galaxy is dangerous together. We could. No. Blake cut him off. The word hung in the air like a blade. We don't need your protection. We never did. Hayes tapped a command. The view screen split, showing the lunar shipyards. Hundreds of new Titanfall class dreadnoughts slid into formation, their dark hulls swallowing the light. You see that? That's just the first wave. We've been preparing for this for decades. While you laughed, we built. While you scorned, we trained. Praxis' claws flexed. You would refuse the might of the Confederation. Blake smiled. It wasn't friendly. We just crushed the Vorac Swarm. You really want to test that might? Silence. The Confederation delegates stared. Hayes closed the channel with a flick of her fingers. The screen went dark. Morrison whistled. Think they got the message? Blake turned to the helm, set course for Earth, and send a priority alert to all Titanfall units. Stand by for deployment. Hayes frowned. You expecting another fight? Blake gazed at the stars. The galaxy just saw what we can do. They'll come again, either to beg or to break. He cracked his knuckles. Either way, well, be ready. The Defiance's engines flared to life, leaving the Confederation ship adrift in the graveyard of the Vorac behind them. The silent dreadnoughts followed. A shadow fleet, born of human defiance. The galaxy would learn. Humans didn't break, they conquered.